Chosen One, something changed in you so quickly that the people who knew the old version of you have not had enough time to understand what they are seeing. They can feel the difference, even if they cannot explain it. They notice that you no longer respond to the same words, that the same behavior does not pull the same reaction from you, and that situations which once consumed your attention now seem unable to reach the center of your life. They may call you distant. They may say you have become difficult, secretive, cold, or unpredictable. But what they are actually experiencing is the loss of access to a version of you that was easier to control, easier to read, and easier to return to whenever they needed your energy. Your frequency did not rise because you suddenly became better than everyone around you. It rose because you stopped agreeing with the things that were lowering you. You stopped calling confusion love. You stopped calling exhaustion loyalty. You stopped calling silence peace when the silence existed only because you were afraid to tell the truth. You began recognizing how often you were abandoning yourself in order to maintain relationships, responsibilities, and identities that had already completed their purpose. The moment you stopped participating in those patterns, something in your energy changed. People felt it before you announced it. That is why some of them are confused now. They are speaking to you with the same words that used to make you explain yourself, but the explanation is no longer coming. They are creating the same distance that once made you chase, but you are allowing the distance to remain. They are offering small pieces of attention that once would have reopened the entire connection, but now you can see the difference between attention and intention. You are not becoming heartless. You are becoming harder to manipulate through the wounds you have started healing. For a long time, the people around you learned which version of you would appear when they behaved in certain ways. If they became distant, you moved closer. If they became disappointed, you changed your decision. If they became angry, you began questioning whether your boundary was unfair. If they gave you a little affection after a long period of uncertainty, you treated that affection as proof that the entire situation was finally changing. Your reactions became predictable because they were connected to old fears. The fear of being abandoned made you overstay. The fear of being misunderstood made you over-explain. The fear of disappointing people made you say yes when your entire body wanted to say no. The fear of losing connection made you accept forms of connection that were slowly disconnecting you from yourself. But those fears no longer have the same authority. This is what people are noticing. They may not know that you spent nights questioning why you kept returning to the same emotional place. They did not see the private moments when you became tired of hearing your own explanations. They were not present when you realized that no amount of patience could transform someone who had no intention of changing. They did not hear the internal conversation in which you finally admitted that you were using hope to avoid accepting reality. They only see the result. They see that you are quieter now, but they do not understand that your silence is no longer fear. It is observation. You are no longer rushing to reveal everything you feel. You are watching how people behave when they cannot immediately read you. You are noticing who respects your space and who becomes anxious when they lose emotional control over the situation. You are learning that people reveal much more when you stop helping them manage the image they want you to believe. The old you filled every silence. The new you allows silence to reveal what words were hiding. This can make people uncomfortable because some relationships survived through your constant emotional labor. You maintained the connection. You initiated the difficult conversation. You softened every truth so no one else had to feel responsible. You translated disrespect into misunderstanding and inconsistency into emotional complexity. You told yourself that you were being patient, compassionate, and spiritually mature. But compassion without boundaries slowly became permission. Your frequency began rising when you stopped giving permission to what was repeatedly disturbing your peace. Now the people who benefited from your endless understanding may describe your boundaries as cruelty. They may accuse you of changing because they expected your healing to remain convenient for them. They wanted you to become stronger, but not strong enough to leave. They wanted you to become confident, but not confident enough to question their behavior. They wanted you to find peace, but not the kind of peace that required distance from them. They were comfortable with the version of your healing that allowed everything around you to remain unchanged. But real healing changes the arrangement. Changes who can reach you, how they can reach you, and what happens when they repeatedly misuse that access. It changes how long you remain in conversations that have no intention of reaching understanding. It changes the amount of time you spend convincing someone to value what they have already experienced. This is why your growth feels like rejection to certain people. Your new standard is exposing the access they once received without responsibility. Do not become arrogant because of this. A higher frequency is not an invitation to see yourself as spiritually superior. It is not permission to look down on people who are still living through lessons You have only recently begun understanding yourself. Remember how long it took you to see the pattern. Remember how many times you returned. Remember how often the truth was present while your heart was not ready to accept it. Your growth should create discernment, not pride. You can understand why someone is still operating from fear without volunteering to become the place where that fear is expressed. You can have compassion for someone's wounds without allowing those wounds to repeatedly injure you. You can recognize that a person is doing the best they currently know how to do while also admitting that their best is not healthy enough to remain close to you. This is emotional maturity. It does not require hatred before separation. It does not require making someone a villain before changing their access. You are allowed to say, "I understand you, but I can no longer continue this pattern with you." That sentence carries a frequency the old you could not hold. The old you believed understanding another person created a responsibility to remain. The new you understands that empathy does not cancel evidence. People who knew the old you may try to bring that version back. They may mention your past behavior as though it created a permanent contract. They may say, "You never used to act like this," without realizing that this is exactly the point. You did not come through everything you experienced so you could remain emotionally identical. You were supposed to change. You were supposed to become more careful with your time, more accurate with your trust, and more protective of the life you are building. You were supposed to stop giving immediate access simply because someone felt familiar. You were supposed to recognize that history is not the same as alignment. Someone can have known you for years and still know very little about who you are becoming. They may know your old reactions. They may know the version of you that needed approval, feared conflict, and felt responsible for everyone's comfort. They may know how to activate your guilt. They may remember the words that made you return, but they do not know the version of you who has learned to pause. That pause is changing everything. The moment between what happens and how you respond is where your new frequency lives. Someone disappoints you, and instead of immediately assuming you were not enough, you observe whether their behavior is part of a larger pattern. Someone becomes distant, and instead of trying to restore closeness at any cost, you allow them to reveal what they do when you stop chasing. Someone misunderstands your boundary, and instead of writing a long explanation, you state the truth once and let their reaction become information. This pause gives you back the power that automatic reactions were giving away. You may still feel the old impulse. Your heart may race, your mind may begin rehearsing explanations, your hand may move toward the phone. Growth does not mean the old reaction never appears. It means the reaction is no longer the only option available. You can feel the impulse and choose differently. Every time you do, your new identity becomes more stable. That stability is what people are reacting to. Some will admire it, some will be inspired by it, some will feel safer around you because your energy is no longer scattered across every emotional emergency. Healthy people will recognize that your boundaries make the relationship clearer. They may not always agree with you, but they will not require you to betray yourself to keep the connection. Others will feel threatened. Your peace will expose their chaos. Your silence will expose how much they depended on your explanations. Your focus will expose how often they interrupted your direction. Your self-respect will make their inconsistent behavior more visible. Do not assume everyone reacting negatively is an enemy. Sometimes people need time to adjust to a version of you that no longer participates in the old dynamic. Give them the opportunity to learn, but do not abandon the new standard in order to make the adjustment easier. Observe what happens after the first reaction. A person capable of growing may initially feel confused, but they will become curious. They will ask what changed. They will listen, reflect, and begin changing how they approach you. They may make mistakes, but their behavior will show movement. A person committed to the old arrangement will attempt to punish you. They may withdraw affection, spread a distorted version of what happened, remind you of everything they have done for you, or create an emergency that pressures you to return to your old role. The difference is not whether they react emotionally. The difference is whether they eventually accept your right to change. You are entering a season where you must stop treating everyone's reaction as a verdict on your growth. Some reactions are simply evidence that the boundary reached the place it needed to reach. A locked door is only offensive to the person who expected unlimited entrance. Your frequency rose because you finally understood that access to you should be connected to responsibility. Attention is not enough. Shared history is not enough. A spiritual connection is not enough. Strong chemistry is not enough. Can the person communicate? Can they respect a boundary without turning it into a battle? Can they take responsibility without making your reaction the central problem? Can they remain consistent after the fear of losing you has passed? These questions may feel less romantic than the stories you once believed, but they create a safer future. You are no longer building relationships from intensity alone. Intensity can be produced by attraction, fear, uncertainty, trauma, longing, and the nervous system's desire to solve what feels unfinished. Something can feel powerful without being healthy. Someone can occupy your mind because the relationship is unresolved, not because they are destined to remain in your life. Your raised frequency allows you to feel something strongly without automatically calling it guidance. This is a major transformation. The old you believed every powerful emotion had to be acted upon. The new you understands that emotions can be received, examined, and allowed to pass without becoming decisions. You can miss someone without contacting them. You can feel attracted without abandoning your standards. You can feel guilty without reversing the boundary. You can feel afraid without delaying the next step. Feelings are no longer controlling the entire structure. They are information, not commands. This makes you more difficult to predict, especially for people who relied on emotional pressure. They may say you have become detached because they cannot create the same reaction. But you are not detached from feeling. You are detached from automatic obedience to every feeling. Your heart is still open, it is simply no longer unguarded. There is a difference. An open heart can love, receive, forgive, and remain compassionate while still recognizing danger. An unguarded heart gives access before trust has been built. It confuses vulnerability with immediate disclosure and spiritual connection with permanent obligation. You are learning to open gradually. You are allowing people to reveal themselves over time, rather than filling unknown spaces with hope. You are noticing whether someone's actions remain consistent after they receive what they wanted. You are no longer building an entire future from one beautiful conversation. The people who knew the old you may find this frustrating because the old version made emotional commitments quickly. You saw potential and began investing before reality had enough time to speak. Now reality speaks first. This is your new frequency. It is not only about positive thinking, repeated numbers, or appearing calm. It is about the standard of truth you are willing to live by. It is the difference between saying you deserve better and becoming unavailable for what repeatedly proves otherwise. Anyone can declare that they are choosing peace. The frequency changes when the phone rings, and you choose not to return to the conversation that always leaves you confused. Anyone can say they are ready for abundance. The frequency changes when you stop using money to regulate every painful emotion and begin creating decisions your future can trust. Anyone can say they are ready to be seen. The frequency changes when you release the work before perfection gives you permission. The real shift is behavioral. People feel it because behavior changes the energy of every room. You no longer enter asking who needs you to become. You enter as yourself. You no longer study everyone's expression before deciding whether you are allowed to speak. You allow other people to have reactions without immediately changing your truth. You no longer mistake being the most useful person in the room for being the most valued. This changes the way you carry yourself, even if you cannot see it. Your movements may become slower because you are not rushing to prove your place. Your voice may become calmer because you do not need volume to create certainty. You may share less because your private life no longer feels like something that must be explained in order to become real. People interpret this as mystery, but what they are actually seeing is internal validation. You are no longer outsourcing every decision. Before, you may have needed several people to confirm what you already knew. You described the situation repeatedly, hoping someone would give you permission to act. Advice became a way to postpone responsibility. If the decision failed, you could tell yourself that you had followed someone else's direction. Now you are learning to gather information without surrendering authority. You can listen to wise counsel, examine the facts, and still accept that the final choice belongs to you. This is not stubbornness, it is adulthood, it is spiritual responsibility. Your frequency rises every time you stop asking people who benefit from your confusion to explain what you should do. Not everyone is capable of guiding you toward a life in which they have less access. Some advice is shaped by love. Some is shaped by fear. Some is shaped by the speaker's need for the relationship to remain familiar. You are learning to tell the difference. The confusion around you may increase temporarily because the old social structure is rearranging. People had a certain place in your life, and you had a certain place in theirs. When you change, those positions become unstable. The person who relied on you to rescue them may become angry when you offer support without taking control. The person who felt secure because you always needed their approval may become distant when you begin trusting yourself. The person who enjoyed being the center of your attention may suddenly become more interested when your attention returns to your own life. Do not immediately interpret increased attention as increased love. Sometimes people become more attentive because the loss of influence has made you visible in a new way. Let time reveal whether the attention contains respect. This is especially important when someone from the past returns. They may feel your frequency changing even from a distance. They may not use that language, but they sense that the emotional doorway is beginning to close. A message arrives, a memory is mentioned. They approach with a level of warmth you once waited months to receive. Pause. The old you would have interpreted the return as proof that the connection was destined. The new you asks what has changed beyond the timing. Is there accountability? Is there clarity? Is there consistency? Or is the person reacting to the fear that you may finally continue without them? A return is not always restoration. Sometimes a return is the final opportunity to choose differently. The test may not be whether you still love them. You may love them deeply. The test is whether love will again be used as a reason to ignore reality. Your frequency rose when you stopped asking love to do the work that character, communication, and responsibility must do. Love cannot make an unavailable person available. Love cannot make an inconsistent person stable. Love cannot replace the conversations someone refuses to have. Love matters, but love alone does not create a safe structure. You know that now. This knowledge has changed your energy. You may also notice that your tolerance for shallow environments is decreasing. Conversations that once entertained you may now feel empty. You may lose interest in gossip, competition, and the constant performance of who is doing better than whom. This does not mean you have become more spiritual than everyone. It means your attention has become more expensive. You have started understanding what it costs to carry information that does not serve your life. Every conversation leaves something in the mind. Every environment influences the nervous system. Every repeated topic strengthens a direction. You are becoming more intentional about what enters. People may say you are isolating yourself when you stop attending spaces that repeatedly leave you depleted. But not all distance is isolation. Sometimes distance is the room in which you remember what your own thoughts sound like. For years, you may have been surrounded by noise that kept you from noticing your dissatisfaction. The schedules, messages, problems, and emotional demands gave you no time to ask whether the life you were maintaining was a life you actually wanted. When the noise decreases, the truth becomes louder. This can feel uncomfortable. You may realize that a goal you work toward belongs to an older version of you. You may understand that your idea of success was shaped by the need to prove something. Perhaps you wanted to show the people who underestimated you that they were wrong. Perhaps you believed achieving enough would finally make you feel safe from rejection. But a future built as revenge remains emotionally attached to the past. Even if you succeed, the people you were trying to prove wrong remain present inside the reason you are building. Your raised frequency is changing the reason. You no longer want success only because it makes others regret doubting you. You want work that feels meaningful, freedom that allows you to breathe, and financial stability that does not cost your entire health. This may confuse people who knew the version of you driven by constant proving. They may interpret your slower pace as a lack of ambition. They do not understand that you are separating ambition from self-destruction. The old you could work endlessly because stopping allowed buried feelings to surface. The new you is learning that rest is not evidence of weakness. It is the condition that allows you to make decisions from clarity instead of depletion. Depletion lowered your standards. When you were exhausted, familiar comfort became more attractive. You returned to people who were not healthy because loneliness felt harder when your energy was low. You delayed your own work because every responsibility seemed overwhelming. You spent money for temporary relief because you needed some immediate sensation of reward. Rest is protecting the frequency you have reached. Do not let people shame you for no longer being endlessly available. Availability is not the same as love. You can care about people while maintaining hours they cannot enter. You can support someone without allowing their emergency to consume the day you promised to your future. You can be generous without becoming responsible for every consequence another adult refuses to face. Your energy needs structure. A higher frequency without boundaries quickly becomes exhaustion again. You may feel inspired, powerful, and clear, but if every person still has immediate access to that energy, the old depletion will return under a new spiritual name. Protect what has changed. This may require practical choices that do not look mystical, turning off notifications, leaving the phone outside the room, scheduling time for the project before other demands enter, looking at your finances directly. Sleeping before your body forces you to stop, saying no without creating a long defense. These actions may not look like spiritual awakening, but they are where awakening becomes a life. People cannot feel your intentions, they feel what your behavior now permits. That is why they are confused. You may still look like the person they knew, but the rules around your presence have changed. The old you may have answered immediately. The new you responds when you have enough clarity. The old you may have accepted last-minute plans because you feared being forgotten. The new you understands that someone who values you can respect your time. The old you may have told everyone about a new dream before taking the first step. The new you is building quietly. Quiet building will confuse people who are accustomed to knowing every stage of your process. They may ask why you are being secretive, but privacy is not secrecy when the purpose is protection. Some things grow better without an audience. An early dream can be damaged by constant explanation. Every time you describe it to someone who cannot understand the vision, you may feel pressured to defend it before it has developed enough to defend itself. Their uncertainty becomes mixed with your own. You are learning to let the work become evidence before inviting opinions. This is not because you think you are better than people. It is because you have learned how easily your energy can be redirected through premature exposure. Protecting your plans also reveals who is connected to you through information rather than genuine care. Some people want constant access to your life because knowing everything gives them a sense of position. When you stop sharing, they may become less interested. Let that teach you. A real connection can survive without continuous updates. A person who cares about you does not require private information as proof of closeness. They can respect that you are building something you are not ready to discuss. The old you may have shared because silence felt lonely. The new you knows that privacy can be full. It can contain preparation, intimacy with your own direction, and freedom from the pressure of immediate reaction. This is part of the frequency shift. You no longer need everyone to witness a decision for the decision to feel real. Another sign of your raised frequency is that you recover faster. Things may still hurt you, but they do not control you for the same amount of time. A disappointing conversation may affect your evening instead of your entire month. A rejection may cause sadness without becoming evidence that you are unworthy. People who knew the old you may expect you to remain in the pain longer. They may be surprised when you continue moving. They may even accuse you of never caring because you are not performing suffering in the way they recognize. But recovery is not proof that the connection meant nothing. It is proof that the connection no longer contains your entire identity. You have learned how to feel without becoming the feeling. You can grieve and still eat, work, sleep, and protect your future. You can acknowledge that something hurt without turning the injury into your permanent name. This is freedom. Before, every ending may have created an identity crisis. If the relationship ended, you questioned whether you were lovable. If the opportunity failed, you questioned whether you were capable. If someone misunderstood you, you questioned whether your truth was valid. Now an event can remain an event. It does not automatically become a definition of you. The loss means something ended. It does not mean your life ended. The rejection means that particular door did not open. It does not mean no door exists. The misunderstanding means someone interpreted you through their own limits. It does not mean you must spend your life changing their interpretation. This emotional separation is raising your frequency because your energy is no longer being trapped inside every event. It returns to you faster. You may notice greater creativity, stronger intuition, or an unexpected desire to begin again. These are not random. When energy is no longer being spent maintaining old emotional loops, it becomes available for construction. You start seeing possibilities that were always present but impossible to notice while your attention was occupied by someone else's inconsistency. An idea appears. A useful connection becomes visible. A small opportunity arrives through an ordinary conversation. You may call it luck, but part of the change is that you are finally present enough to recognize what was previously passing beside you. Your raised frequency does not force the world to give you everything you want. It changes what you notice, what you choose, and how long you remain in situations that repeatedly produce the same result. That change reorganizes your future. You begin choosing opportunities that support the person you are becoming rather than opportunities that only validate the wound. A prestigious role may no longer impress you if it requires permanent exhaustion. A relationship may no longer feel desirable if it demands uncertainty as the price of connection. Your desires are becoming more accurate. This accuracy may make you appear less excited by things that once motivated you. People may wonder why you are turning down an opportunity they would accept immediately. They are judging the surface. You are measuring the complete cost. You are no longer asking only, "Can I get this?" You are asking, "What will maintaining this require me to become?" That question reflects a higher frequency. Some blessings are expensive in ways money cannot measure. They cost sleep, dignity, privacy, health, or the ability to remain connected to yourself. Not every opportunity is meant to be accepted simply because it appears. Discernment is knowing the difference between a door that stretches you and a door that asks you to betray yourself. Growth requires discomfort. It may demand learning, courage, visibility, and responsibility. But beneath the discomfort, there will be a sense of integrity. Self-betrayal creates a different feeling. It produces contraction, confusion, and the need to repeatedly explain why the cost should be acceptable. Trust this difference. Your body often recognizes misalignment before your mind creates the language. That tension before answering someone, the exhaustion after every interaction, the relief when a plan is cancelled. These responses are not always final instructions, but they are information. The old you ignored the information because the desired outcome seemed more important. The new you is listening. People are confused because you no longer need a situation to become catastrophic before allowing yourself to leave. This is a significant change. You used to wait for undeniable evidence. You needed the betrayal to become larger, the exhaustion to become unbearable, or the disrespect to become impossible for everyone else to deny. You wanted a reason strong enough that no one could question your decision. Now you understand that repeated misalignment is enough. You can change direction before complete destruction. You can set a boundary before resentment turns into hatred. You can rest before collapse. You can leave a conversation before it becomes cruel. This is wisdom, not weakness. It is the ability to respond when the first cracks appear instead of waiting for the entire structure to fall. Those who knew the old you may interpret this as impatience because they benefited from how long you remained. They may say you give up too easily, but they are comparing your current response to a version of you who tolerated far too much. You are not giving up quickly. You are recognizing sooner. That is different. A higher frequency shortens the distance between awareness and action. You no longer spend months pretending not to know what your body, behavior, and repeated experience have already made clear. This will save you time, but it may also create a strange period of loneliness. When you stop participating in familiar dynamics, the old connections may weaken before new ones have fully formed. Do not interpret this space as evidence that you made the wrong decision. Every transformation contains a period when the previous identity has been released, but the new environment has not yet arrived. You no longer belong where you were, yet you cannot fully see where you are going. This space is uncomfortable because it contains no familiar instructions. Do not rush to fill it. Loneliness can make the past appear more beautiful than it was. The mind begins editing. It remembers the comfort and removes the confusion. It remembers the laughter and forgets the hours of anxiety. When this happens, remember the entire structure. You can appreciate what was good without returning to what was harmful. You can miss a person without giving them the same access. You can honor a chapter without reopening it. The new frequency needs enough quiet to become stable. If you return every time the silence becomes uncomfortable, the old cycle learns that it only needs to wait for your loneliness. Stay long enough to discover what the space contains. You may meet yourself there, not the version built around someone else's needs, but the version whose desires have been waiting beneath every responsibility. You may realize that you do not know what you enjoy when no one else is choosing the plan. You may discover that your own company initially feels unfamiliar. This is not failure. You spent years learning everyone else. Now you are learning yourself what restores you, what kind of work makes time feel meaningful, what environments allow your body to relax, which people make you feel clearer rather than more confused. Your answers become the blueprint of the next chapter. People who knew the old you may not recognize these desires because you rarely allowed them to lead. They may say, "That does not sound like you." Perhaps it does not sound like the person you had to become around them, but it may sound exactly like the person you are without pressure. You do not owe permanent loyalty to a personality created by survival. You can become softer after years of hardness. You can become more private after years of oversharing. You can become ambitious after years of hiding or choose a quieter life after years of constant proving. Change does not make your past false. It means your past is no longer the only information available. Your frequency has risen because you are integrating more of yourself, the strong part and the tired part, the loving part and the discerning part, the ambitious part and the part that requires rest. Before, you may have believed that only one could exist. You thought boundaries meant becoming cold or rest meant becoming lazy. Now you understand that healthy opposites can exist together. You can love deeply and leave what is unsafe. You can forgive and remember the pattern. You can work seriously and protect your health. You can remain humble while refusing to shrink. This integration makes your energy difficult to manipulate because people can no longer push you into extremes. They cannot convince you that saying no means you do not care. They cannot convince you that one mistake erases all your progress. They cannot convince you that being spiritual requires accepting repeated disrespect. You are becoming more complete. This is what they feel. Your frequency is no longer built around proving anything. You do not need to demonstrate that you are healed, successful, desired, or unaffected. The need to prove belongs to the wound that still wants a witness. Real change becomes quieter. It does not announce itself in every room. It does not need an audience to remain true. It is visible through consistency. The boundary held after guilt rises, the work continued after motivation fades, and the peaceful choice made even when chaos offers immediate excitement. People may try to provoke the old version because they need proof that the change is not permanent. They may mention something sensitive, withdraw attention, or approach you with a familiar emotional pattern. Do not be surprised. When a dynamic changes, it often tests its old entrance. The test is not evidence that you have failed. It is the moment the new behavior is invited to become stronger. Pause before responding. Ask whether the response belongs to who you are now or to the person the situation expects you to be. You do not have to answer immediately. Time is one of your new protections. The old you believed every issue needed to be solved in the moment. The new you understands that urgency often serves the person who wants access before you have enough clarity. Sleep before deciding, walk before sending. Let the first emotional wave pass. What is true will remain true after you become calm. Manipulation depends on immediate reaction. Discernment becomes stronger through space. This is why your slower responses may confuse people. They cannot tell whether the old strategy is still working. They may increase the pressure. Do not let pressure become proof that you must respond. Pressure is information. A person who respects you can tolerate the time required for a thoughtful answer. Someone who needs immediate control may treat your pause as rejection. Let their response reveal them. You are no longer responsible for making everyone feel comfortable while you gather your own truth. Your raised frequency may also bring a deeper awareness of your words. You notice how often you speak against the life you are trying to create. This always happens to me. I am never lucky. People always leave. I am too late. These statements may feel like descriptions, but repetition turns them into emotional instructions. Your mind begins searching for evidence that confirms them. You do not need to replace them with unrealistic declarations. Use accuracy. This pattern has happened before, and I am learning how to interrupt it. Some opportunities did not work, but that does not define every future opportunity. I have chosen unavailable people before, and I can choose differently. I am beginning with more experience than I had years ago. Accurate language raises your frequency because it returns possibility without denying reality. You are not pretending the past did not happen. You are refusing to use it as the complete forecast. People may still speak to you through your old identity. They may remind you of mistakes you have already learned from. They may expect the same insecurity to be available. Do not argue. Your consistency will eventually make the old description irrelevant. You do not need to convince someone you have changed. Live differently long enough that the argument becomes unnecessary. Those committed to the past may never update their image of you. Let them keep the version they need. Their memory is not your identity. Some people can only understand you through the period when they had the most power over you. Your growth disturbs the story they tell about themselves. If you are no longer weak, they may have to question whether they were truly helping you or simply enjoying the position your insecurity gave them. You cannot force that reflection. Continue moving. The people aligned with your future will not require you to remain loyal to your lowest season. They will not use your previous uncertainty to dismiss your current clarity. They will allow you to evolve without treating every change as a betrayal. This does not mean they will agree with everything. Healthy relationships contain correction, but correction and control feel different. Correction respects your agency. Control punishes it. Learn the difference. A higher frequency does not mean surrounding yourself only with people who praise you. It means being able to receive honest feedback without collapsing and reject manipulation without guilt. You no longer need criticism to become proof that you are worthless, and you no longer need praise to become proof that you are right. You can examine the message. Is it specific? Is it grounded in behavior? Does it come from someone who has demonstrated integrity? Useful feedback strengthens you. Manipulation creates confusion and dependency. Your frequency rose because you started trusting yourself enough to tell them apart. This may be one of the most important stages of your spiritual awakening. Not the stage where you see more signs, but the stage where you need fewer signs because your decisions are becoming grounded in truth. You are no longer asking the universe to confirm what repeated behavior has already shown. You are no longer interpreting every coincidence as permission to return to what harmed you. You understand that guidance and obsession do not feel the same. Guidance creates direction. Obsession creates endless interpretation. Guidance may ask for courage, but beneath the fear there is clarity. Obsession keeps changing the answer depending on the latest message, dream, or emotional wave. You are leaving the cycle of constantly searching outside yourself for certainty. That is why your energy feels different. You are present. People feel presence because it cannot be easily pulled away. You are listening without disappearing into their story. You are caring without making their problem the center of your entire world. This is a new form of power. It is not loud. It is not aggressive. It does not need to dominate the room. It is the quiet knowledge that you can remain connected to yourself even when someone else is disappointed, distant, or uncertain. Once this knowledge enters the body, people cannot interact with you in the same way. They may try, but the response is different. And when the response is different, the relationship must either evolve or reveal that it cannot. Let the revelation happen. Do not keep rescuing relationships from the information they are trying to give you. If the connection weakens when you stop overfunctioning, perhaps your overfunctioning was the connection. If someone disappears when you stop chasing, perhaps being chased was what they valued. If a person becomes hostile when you ask for clarity, perhaps confusion was part of how they maintained control. These truths can hurt, but they also free energy that was being used to preserve illusions. Your new frequency prefers painful truth over comforting uncertainty. This is why change is happening so quickly now. The moment you choose truth consistently, many decisions become simpler. You no longer need to examine the same pattern from every possible angle. You ask whether it is honest, mutual, sustainable, and aligned. If the answer repeatedly remains no, you stop using potential as a reason to stay. That is not impatience. That is self-respect with memory. Chosen one, the people who knew the old you are confused because they expected your transformation to remain theoretical. They heard you speak about healing, boundaries, purpose, and peace before. Perhaps you attempted change and then returned when loneliness, guilt, or fear became too strong. They assumed this time would be the same, but something is different now. You no longer only understand the lesson, you are tired of paying for it. There is a moment when pain stops being mysterious. You finally see the mechanism. You recognize the decision that keeps recreating it. Once this happens, repetition becomes harder because you can no longer call it accidental. You know what happens when you reopen the door. You know how you feel after ignoring the boundary. You know what another month of delay costs. The knowledge has reached the body. This is why your frequency rose so quickly. Years of lessons appeared to become one decision overnight, but it was not overnight. The decision was built through every disappointment, every return, every conversation, and every moment when you realized you had abandoned your own truth again. The final shift looked sudden because no one saw the accumulation. Do not minimize what it took to reach this point. But do not turn the pain into a reason to close your heart forever. Your new frequency should not create permanent suspicion. It should create wiser openness. There are people who will respect your time. There are relationships where clarity does not have to be begged for. There is work that stretches you without consuming your entire identity. There are opportunities that do not require you to become smaller in order to receive them. Do not let your experience with misalignment convince you that alignment does not exist. The purpose of discernment is not to reject everyone. It is to recognize what is safe enough to receive. Allow life to surprise you differently. Your nervous system may still expect the old pattern. When someone communicates consistently, you may become suspicious. When an opportunity unfolds calmly, you may think it lacks importance. Chaos created intensity, and intensity became your measurement of meaning. You must learn a new measurement. Peace may feel quiet at first. Consistency may feel less exciting. A healthy person may not activate the emotional chase that once made you feel deeply connected. Give calm enough time to become familiar. Do not create a problem simply because nothing is wrong. This is another way people may become confused. They may see you choosing what appears less dramatic and wonder why. They do not understand that you are no longer addicted to the emotional extremes that kept you exhausted. Your frequency is becoming sustainable. Sustainable energy does not need constant highs. It remains available through ordinary days. It allows you to build instead of repeatedly recovering. You are no longer interested in breakthroughs that require another breakdown next week. You want structure. You want love that can survive ordinary mornings. You want work that does not depend on permanent crisis. You want peace that is not only the silence after conflict. This is a deeper desire than excitement. Protect it. The old world may offer one final intense experience designed to make sustainable peace look boring. A person may return with powerful words. An opportunity may promise fast results. A conflict may invite you to prove that the old reaction still exists. Pause, ask whether the intensity is building your future or simply activating your history. The body may feel similar in both situations. Your heart beats faster. Your attention narrows, everything feels urgent. Wait until urgency passes. Alignment remains after the rush. A temporary activation needs immediate action because it cannot survive examination. You are allowed to examine everything that asks for your energy. That is not fear, it is stewardship. Your time, attention, love, creativity, and body are resources. A raised frequency requires you to stop treating them as unlimited. You cannot pour into every person, project, and possibility without becoming empty. Choosing one direction means refusing others. People may call this selfish because the old you tried to keep every door open, but every open door creates a demand on your attention. Close what has no honest future. Your life does not need more unfinished rooms. This may involve grieving possibilities that never became reality. You may have spent years attached to what could have happened, the relationship that almost became what you needed, the project you almost started, the person you almost became. Grieve the possibility, then release it. An imagined future can occupy as much emotional space as a real memory, sometimes more because imagination protects it from disappointment. It remains perfect because it was never tested. Your new frequency needs reality. Take the real step, have the real conversation, examine the real behavior, or release the imagined future that prevents another one from forming. This is how energy returns. You stop sending it toward timelines that exist only in thought. You bring it into the present. What can you build today? What truth can you speak? What access can you change? What small action would make tomorrow different? A raised frequency becomes powerful when it enters the calendar. Without action, it remains a feeling. Schedule the work, protect the hour, move the money, make the appointment, create evidence that the person you are becoming has begun living. People may continue expecting the old you for a while. Let them. Do not perform your change for them. Do not become angry every time someone speaks to you through an outdated image. Their understanding will either catch up or become irrelevant. Your responsibility is to remain consistent. Consistency will feel less dramatic than the breakthrough, but it is what protects the breakthrough from becoming another temporary emotional moment. The old pattern may return tomorrow. Choose again. You may feel lonely next week. Choose again. Someone may question you. Choose again. Every choice strengthens the new frequency. You do not lose your growth because an old feeling returns. Healing is not proven by never being triggered. It is proven by how quickly you recognize what is happening and return to yourself. The old you could lose months inside one emotional event. The new you may lose an hour, a day, or a week. Then remember, that is progress. Do not turn one imperfect response into permission to abandon the entire direction. Return sooner. Apologize if necessary. Restate the boundary. Continue the work. You are not required to become flawless in order to become different. Your frequency is rising through recovery, not perfection. Chosen one, this is the season where some people will leave because they can no longer find the version of you they understood. Let them go without turning every departure into a tragedy. Not everyone is meant to know every version of you. Some people knew the person who was surviving. Others will meet the person who is building. A few will have the capacity to grow through both. Do not force someone to remain simply because they have history with you. History can be honored without becoming a permanent contract. The people aligned with your future will not need you to reduce your frequency in order to feel close. They will not compete with your growth, mock your discipline, or treat your peace as distance. They will recognize that your boundaries protect what is genuine. They will bring their own energy instead of arriving only to consume yours. They will not need constant access to trust the relationship. They will make your life feel more spacious, not more confusing. Allow these relationships to find you. You do not need to chase them. You need to remain visible enough to receive them. Do not let privacy become hiding. Do not let discernment become isolation. Do not let peace become an excuse to avoid every risk. A higher frequency still requires courage. You must allow yourself to be known by people who have earned the opportunity. You must release the work. You must accept invitations that stretch you. You must communicate your needs instead of expecting safe people to read your mind. Healing changes responsibility, but it does not remove it. You are responsible for telling the truth before resentment builds. You are responsible for noticing when fear is making every new person pay for what an old person did. You are responsible for giving aligned opportunities enough room to develop. The new frequency is not only protection. It is participation. You are not raising your walls. You are strengthening your doors. Doors can open. Doors can close. You decide based on evidence, not panic. This is the balance you are learning. People who knew only your extremes may not understand it. They knew you as completely available or completely withdrawn, endlessly patient or suddenly finished, highly motivated or completely exhausted. Now you are becoming more measured. You speak before resentment becomes rage. You rest before exhaustion becomes collapse. You observe before attachment becomes fantasy. This emotional regulation may look less dramatic, but it gives you a future that does not require constant repair. Your frequency has risen because your life is no longer organized around reacting. You are beginning to create. Creation requires a different energy. It requires focus, patience, and the willingness to continue when nothing dramatic is happening. You may notice a desire to build something now: a business, a healthier body, a calmer home, a skill, a financial structure, or a relationship with yourself that no longer depends on external validation. Take that desire seriously. The energy released from old patterns needs a direction. If you do not give it one, the mind may return to familiar emotional loops simply because they provide somewhere for the energy to go. Build, create something physical, organize the plan. The next version of you needs evidence. The more evidence you create, the less power the old identity has. Each page says you are someone who writes. Each protected boundary says you are someone who values your peace. Each financial decision says you are someone who can create stability. Identity follows repeated action. Do not wait to feel completely transformed before living differently. Live differently and the transformation becomes more believable to your own nervous system. The people around you may see the result before you do. They may comment that you seem calmer, more focused, or harder to reach. Do not become dependent on their observation. Your growth is not real because someone noticed it. It is real because you know what it costs to respond differently. Still, let their confusion remind you that change has become visible. You do not need to defend it. You do not need to explain the entire spiritual process. Some things are better understood through experience. Let them meet the new boundary. Let them discover that the old guilt no longer works. Let them notice that your attention is no longer freely available to every source of chaos. Your life will communicate what your words no longer need to repeat. There is one final warning, chosen one. Do not lower your frequency simply to be recognized by people who only understand the old you. It can be tempting. Loneliness may make you miss being understood, even if what they understood was your wound. You may consider returning to the old behavior because it makes the relationship feel familiar again. But belonging that requires self-betrayal is not belonging. It is performance. You have performed enough. You have shaped yourself around other people's comfort, expectations, and emotional limitations. You have reduced your truth into language they could tolerate. You have delayed decisions because your growth might disturb the arrangement. That season is ending. The discomfort you see in others does not automatically mean you are wrong. Sometimes it means the old balance depended on you carrying more than your share. Let the balance change. Healthy relationships will find a new position. Unhealthy ones may not survive. Trust what the change reveals. Your frequency did not rise so you could become untouchable. It rose so you could become more truthful. Truth may remove certain people, but it will also create room for relationships that do not require hiding. Do not focus only on who is confused. Notice who becomes clearer. Notice who respects the boundary without punishment. Notice who celebrates your growth without making it about themselves. Notice who can meet your new energy without demanding that you become smaller. These are the people who may belong in the next structure. Give your attention accordingly. From this moment forward, stop measuring connection by how long someone has known you. Measure it by how honestly they can meet you now. Stop measuring love by how intensely someone returns. Measure it by how consistently they remain. Stop measuring success by how much pain you can tolerate. Measure it by what you can sustain without abandoning your health. These new measurements are the evidence that your frequency has changed. You are no longer impressed by what once controlled you. That is freedom. The people who knew the old you may remain confused for a while. Let them be confused. You are not required to become understandable to everyone during your transformation. A seed beneath the ground does not explain itself to the surface. It changes in darkness until the new form becomes strong enough to rise. You are in that process. Some parts are already visible. Others are still becoming. Protect the hidden work. Continue choosing differently. Soon, the people who are confused will have only two options: adjust to the truth of who you are becoming or remain attached to a version of you that no longer exists. That choice belongs to them. Your choice is to keep moving. Do not go backward simply because the future has not fully introduced itself. The silence ahead is not empty. It is the space where your new life can finally speak without competing with the noise of the old one. Your frequency rose because you returned to yourself. Stay there. If this awakens something inside you, write "They can feel the new me" in the comments and let those words mark the moment you stopped apologizing for the transformation that your old life could no longer prevent. You are not cold, you are clear, you are not distant, you are directed, you are not becoming someone else. You are becoming unavailable for everything that required you to forget who you were. And that is why the people who knew the old you are confused. They are looking for someone who no longer lives here.